Okay, I'd like to call the committee of the whole for Monday, August 7th, 2023 to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gaffino.
Here.
Trustee Christensen.
Here.
Trustee Curtis.
Here.
Trustee Gately.
Here.
Trustee Lowry.
Here.
Trustee Nedved.
Here.
Trustee Salazar. Here.
Great, thank you. Audience comments. Trustee comments. All right, item 1 under discussion, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 1 under discussion is the petition for the North Aurora Fire Protection District's PUD, Planned Unit Development. This is part of the ongoing zoning process as part of our land swap agreement for the relocation of potentially the new Fire Station 1. Tonight, Nathan is going to walk us through the zoning process, and then we have the design team from the fire district here as well.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to do a quick overview and then I'll turn it over to the architect here. So as you all know, the Fire Protection District is building their new Station 1. It's a 2-story, approximately 26,000 square foot building at the corner of Oak and 31. The front of the building would face Oak. Front of the building is going to face Oak here. The bays would face 31 here. Parking lot accessed from Oak and the existing alley. The alleyway would be improved and widened to handle the fire trucks. Fire trucks would be able to pull in the back, pull through the building, and exit out onto 31 there. There's also a decorative area with a flag poles, patio, landscaping, a nice kind of public entryway here on the corner. And I'll let the architect get into the building design a bit, but I just wanted to go through real quick on what's being sought in this approval. So there's several things. The first is a map amendment. The property is currently zoned OR and R2. It's proposed that this site would all go to B3. Eventually, it is anticipated that the majority of the Block 1 would become the B3 zoning district as we redevelop it and do the redevelopment plans for our sites. But right now we're just doing the fire district site itself. The second request would be for a planned unit development. The planned unit development would approve the use of a government office and facility. It would also have several code exceptions for this site plan, mostly to do with fitting the building on the site. So for example, there's a 50-foot landscape setback along 31. The property is only 150 feet deep. So if you kept to that, it would make it virtually undevelopable. So there is a list of code exceptions in the PUD to deal with that. They're also requesting site plan approval and final plat approval to merge all these lots together and create the new lot for the fire station at 1.7 acres that was set out in the land swap agreement. The Planning Commission met last week and recommended approval with several conditions listed in your memo here tonight. Staff had 5 conditions. The Planning Commission added 1 condition that we investigate hatching on 31 striping so that the intersection isn't blocked at the lights on either end. The design for this was set up so that this entryway would be in the middle between the 2 lots or 2 lights, excuse me. So it would be as far away from the queue lengths, left turn lengths for Oak and for State. So hopefully they're not pulling out into traffic. But the Planning Commission did ask to investigate striping as well. So with that, I'm going to bring the architect up and they have a few slides about the design of the building.
Thank you very much. I'm Nathan Custer with Dewberry. We really appreciate the time and the attention of the committee tonight to look at this project that's really important to us. We know it's important to the Fire Protection District, and we're really looking forward to moving forward with progress in it. We started out this design process working with several groups of stakeholders, most notably the Fire Protection District themselves. We started out our projects creating critical success factors. So in this case, we established 8 factors that we felt would be critical for this project. First amongst them is really operations. Everything that we did was set up within the building design and within the site design to aid the first response ability of the protection district for the community. We also wanted to preserve relationships, having conversations like the one we're having tonight, so everyone understands and appreciates what's being done on the property. Keeping in mind firefighter health. So there's some elements that I'll point out in the building and the site development in that interest. Being good stewardships of resources. So we've done some energy analysis and things like that go above and beyond the minimal sustainability standards that are required by the state. Future-proof assets. We know this building's intended to be around at least 50 to 60 years. I like to remind groups that 60 years is further away than the moon landing from where we are. So a lot can change, and we anticipate that this will want to be a flexible facility. Create a family atmosphere. The fire service is a tight group, so we designed with that in mind, as well as a real focus on durability of materials and low maintenance. So you'll see that we brought some of the materials to share with you, so you can get an idea for that, and that's going to be kind of paramount in how we thought about designing the facility, and then be a good neighbor within the community. In terms of the site design, we're very intentional to understand that we're mostly in a residential context. So with that in mind, we took several steps in the planning of the building. We built the density up from the Oak Street corner, where it's mostly residential, with just plantings and parking, and the density and the height of the building builds up toward the south, where from our understanding, it's anticipated that there could be some future development with a larger mass. We also created some buffer areas that would soften the building into the site. We know this building is 8 to 10 times the size of the residences that surround it. So we want a design that's somewhat restrained and allows for not dominating that area, but also setting up also potential development. And then we also wanted to create an opportunity with right-sized parking that fronts right onto a public plaza. As you enter into the main level, similar to this building, you come up a set of stairs into a community room, very similar in scale to this. Just a quick overview of the floor plans. This is what we call the apparatus bay level. That's essentially the hardworking operational part of the building. The large open square you see on the right-hand side, that's where all the apparatus is. That's where the fire trucks are. That's the heart and soul of the fire station. There's a bar of space on the right-hand side that contains amenities for physical fitness, training within a hose drying tower. So that speaks to some of the wellness components in terms of physical wellness. On the opposite side of this floor is a series of locker rooms, a day room and kitchen area where firefighters essentially live while they're on shift. And then the grouping of small rooms on the far left is the bunk rooms. So those would look out onto that green plaza between the parking area and the building itself. And then there's essentially an entry vestibule kind of to the south there. Thank you. And then there's what we call the administrative garage. This is a space for chief's vehicles to be parked, also in an improved state of readiness for responding to emergency. And then this is what we call the administrative level. Stacked above where those bunk rooms were are essentially the main administrative leadership offices. They also look out onto that same green toward Oak Street. There's a variety of public bathrooms, conference rooms, as well as some work copy type areas. Then to the south, that bump out area, plan south here, that bump out area that's above the admin garage would be the community room. So that's a space that would be available for training for firefighters, working with interagency, and also for engaging with the community. From a material standpoint, like I said, we really want to focus on materials that would be very durable, very low maintenance, but also have a mixture of materials that could relate to things that are residential and use and scale, but also well fitted to a mixed use type of application for any development that might come on the block. So we've incorporated, again, you can see the color palette here is mainly neutrals with some deep charcoal colors and the pop of red, very kind of signature of fire service. We've included a precast for the main material of the building. It's very efficient for us, which is allowing us actually to include more square footage than would otherwise be able to be accomplished within the project. We feel like this neutral material will set up well for stone or stucco or other kind of materials that might be used adjacent on the property. We incorporated brick, so that could be used monolithically like we have, or broken down into smaller panels, so providing that scale. We also have some profiled metal panel, which is a very inexpensive material from the standpoint of being incorporated in various different ways. As well as some wood look type materials that tie into some of the historical references of uses and things that have happened on this site itself.
I have a quick question on the color scheme.
Yes,
The overhead doors are going to be bright red.
yes.
Is that like a newer color? Because I don't think I've ever seen any that aren't. white.
Really? Okay, so it's very typical on firehouses to incorporate red doors.
Almost every firehouse has red doors, everyone that I've seen.
Well, I'm just making sure that the aesthetics are right because we're trying to develop the
Right.
totality of Block 1. So if we have this ugly fire station anchoring it, it's going to be hard, to get other developments.
I think the red adds an accent though. I think the red is offsets with the gray. Red is not the primary, it's going to be an accent color.
Right, but red to the eye isn't that typically that pleasing in such a big space. So do you have any illustrations or examples of buildings that would have
Yeah.
similar colors?
There it is up there.
Yeah, so there's renderings up here. So you can see that predominantly we're using neutrals in that precast that's lending itself toward a stone or a stucco. And also you can see the application of brick in certain areas. There's elements in the tower here with the emblem that tie into some of the history of the early fire barn that had an open bell tower. So we're tying that in, as well as sort of the Schneider Mill kind of reference of wood elements that form this continuous ribbon that go up and over the tower and form the canopy piece, which then also forms an entry element to the building. So yeah, you can see that, red is definitely a typical accent used on fire stations. And you can see here it's probably 20 or 25% of this elevation. If we go to the other elevation, you can see it's used as just a subtle pinstripe that references the pinstriping scheme that's actually on their fire trucks. So there's a subtle tie-in to the North Aurora Fire Protection District in general.
Are the doors like bright red, like the fire truck red?
Yeah, they're a bright red.
Oh,
I mean, I may have a sample with me.
no, that's all right. I just wanted to know because the picture showed it kind of a muted red and
Yeah, so this example up here is emblematic of the red that's planned for.
oh yeah, well,
for the
our
overhead
screens
doors.
aren't as good as that one. So
What's that?
our screen down here aren't it?
Oh,
I
okay.
can see it now.
Yeah,
I can see
sorry.
it.
There than it does
I take
there.
my question back.
Okay, I thought maybe you were seeing some of it in shadow or something, which could have
Yeah.
made it more muted. Sure.
I should have looked up. Yeah.
So which samples you don't have the door here?
I think I do actually.
So the brick pattern is there, and I can pass those around if you'd like to see them. The metal is there, and
I can actually pass this around. This is the red color.
Here you
Thank you.
go. Go. Next.
So that's the end of the presentation. So if there's any other questions, for the architect or for me?
I think it looks fine.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Thank
like
you.
the- You know? I like the softness of how you designed the corner of Oak and 31 and with the trees. And good job.
I'm
Appreciate
excited
that.
that it's happening.
Yeah. Finally getting.
Honestly,
something done.
I'm excited that it's happening.
Great.
Anybody else?
I really like the front elevation that faces Oak Street. I think that's very sharp looking. And I suppose, and I don't have a concern about the red doors, but those red doors would be facing away from everything else that might be built there. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell from a rendering, but it looks like the doors are not solid red. There's some sort of strip of windows or something in the middle. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's, there's sectional overhead doors, so they would be in approximately 2-foot bands that would, similar to a garage door at your home. And 2 of those are intended to be fully glass. So I've actually brought a sample of the glass that we intend to use. So it will be broken up by some glass. It does break up the doors, but it's also part of the operations. It allows the firefighters to see out through those doors, see if there's any obstructions or anything outside the doors before they exit the building, and kind of prep them as they move out onto what we call the apron, that front driveway piece, so that they can start to observe traffic or pedestrians or anything that they might have to negotiate.
Brings natural light in as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I didn't go into a lot of detail about that in tonight's discussion, but we actually oriented the building to use what we call passive design strategies. So that bar of space where the workout area is, the fitness area on the south, that's intended to block a lot of the full midday sun. But we put a lot of the windows on the east and the west side so that we could get some solar heat gain. In the wintertime, we actually want the sun to impart some heat into the space, and that's an energy savings mechanism. So yeah, definitely having some glass in the doors helps us to accomplish that.
I think the Oak Street side ties nicely with, the kitty corner. We have a business there, and it does look, professional. I mean, it looks nice. I think not overly done for taxpayer. Also, it looks businessy, and the other end is garage doors and what we're going to get.
Sure.
So, but I mean, I think overall, it's a nice project, and same way. I'm glad to see it moving ahead. So
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, we used a 14-foot wide module, and the overall building's 28 feet high, so it's all working modularly there. And so that's a good module that ties into a residential scale, but also it is appropriate as sort of a base height for something that might be of a larger massing adjacent to it. So those are some conscious decisions that we're.
I mean, it's a nice look coming into town, because it's going to be kind of the first, renovated area that they're going to see, that Oak Street side. So, yeah. Anything else?
No, it's great.
All right. Thank you.
Good.
Thank
Looks
you.
good.
All right. Item 2, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 2 on the agenda tonight is our follow-up discussion on HR policy, our manual updates. As you recall, we just met over a couple things in the previous meeting. We purposely have this meeting to talk about one new item, in addition to just recapping everything else we've done, the social media policy. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and he's going to walk through.
Okay, we'll start tonight just kind of recapping what we talked about at the last meeting. So the original changes we had addressed with these personnel policy were first, section 2.9, the drug-free workplace. Here what we did was we took cannabis out of basically illicit drugs and listed it similar to alcohol to say employees can't bring it to work, manufacture, distribute it, be under the influence while they're at work. So really just pulled that out of and listed it separately. Section 4.3, new hire rate. This is where it allows the village administrators to start a new hire at any point within the range rather than just going up to the midpoint and then requiring board approval to go higher than the midpoint. Section 4.8 is performance evaluation and salary increases. This removes the language where the starting salary shall always be upon the anniversary date or the evaluation. So this would allow on a case-by-case basis the village administrator to move an employee up a step if there was a justified reason for it. Section 6.3 would be lunch periods. This is where we would add a 15-minute paid break to basically be used with the employees 30-minute unpaid break to do a full 45-minute lunch period.
I like to stop there for a minute, throw a wrench into that one. So as we talked last time, most of us didn't realize they didn't get a break at all, morning or afternoon. So I'd like to propose that we give them a full half hour paid instead of that 15 minutes. That way they have an hour, or they can take it, I suppose, as a break in the morning, afternoon as well. I don't know how that would work out, Steve, but
It would still be in conjunction, I think, for scheduling purposes to make it easier on the amount of staff and the front desk and whatnot, and making sure
Yeah.
there's coverage. The intent was that any additional time would be in conjunction with their half hour unpaid lunch.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's only fair.
Okay.
Good.
Section 6.8, flexible hours and remote work. Really, we just kind of more clearly defined what would count for flexible hours remote work, what employees would be eligible to, make up time if they had to miss a half hour, could they stay late or work from home if you had the ability to for a short period of time, meant to be, once or twice here or there type of thing. And then section 10.7, service recognition. This just really removes the $750 limit on if somebody retires and we buy food or stuff to have a retirement party, going away party. We take the cap off the $750 and just say, an appropriate, a reasonable amount to be able to buy food for people attending. So that's what we went over last time. If there's any additional questions or follow-up.
No, I'm fine with that. I think those
Okay.
are good changes. No problem.
Yep.
So as Steve mentioned, the other thing that kind of we wanted to bring into this was we started looking at the social media policy. The current one is in section 9.6 of our personnel manual. And when we started looking at it, we just saw it was really lengthy and very restrictive. So we've been working with the village's labor attorney to kind of come up with a new policy that's just a little easier to read, easier to understand. Doesn't really infringe on any employees' like First Amendment rights or any labor laws, just something that we kind of get in there that makes sense for everybody. And basically kind of what it boils down to is it focuses on, the employees not portraying themselves as, I'm a village employee on social media and I'm talking negatively about the village, or I'm talking about village business, really just kind of keep that out of your personal stuff, the employees side. In addition to I couldn't go on social media, wearing a village shirt or something like that, saying I'm a village employee, posting pictures of myself drinking beers or something like that. So it's just, kind of trying to make us say we're acting appropriately on social media if we have it, and we're not kind of putting the village in a negative light. So that's really what our policy is intending to do here. And then there were some additional things we added to it as we were going through all this, just making sure everything within the personnel policy and the village code kind of matched up. And we found some things within the village code addressing it with the village administrators' duties that we wanted to kind of clean up. First, one of them really doesn't relate to the personnel policy at all. This is more of kind of like a fiscal matter, a budget. There was mention that we would have our first basically budget review or our budget workshop. We specifically said the second regular committee of the whole meeting in April. We generally do that way earlier, basically in March than our second one in April. So we just wanted to get rid of doing it at the second meeting in April and just saying in accordance with our budget process calendar we put together. So it's usually a March thing. The second thing we did was we removed a section where it talks about the village administrator shall give a monthly update on any work consultants are doing within the village. From what I understand, this has kind of never been done, even though it exists in the code. So what we're doing is we're just kind of doing the updating code to basically match current process of as things come up, we'll let you know, but there's no official, monthly update or report given.
I think to jump in on that, I think part of the reason is the code was written at a time when we didn't have department heads and special areas that actually oversee these types of contracts and whatnot. So that was when I first started here, for instance, you still had consultants, like we didn't have an engineer or a public works director when I started. So what you ended up having is the engineer would give reports at the board meeting on projects that they were working on.
Yeah.
But now we have a department head who handles public works as well as a village engineer who oversees those engineering projects. A lot of the things that were written when I first got here were written for the first administrator or the first time that they took a crack at it, going back 20 years or more. So a lot of the things were out of practice. We actually cleaned up the village administrator code recently, and I take the blame for it. I actually missed one or two things in the code that should have brought back about a year ago or so when we did it.
And then the last thing we're updating within the code relates basically to the personnel side and hiring. The code currently says the village administrator will follow the policies and procedures for hiring employees and recommend to the president and village board of hiring of all employees. And again, from what I understand, that doesn't come back to the board for every single time we hire a new employee. So what we're changing the language to be is that the village administrator is responsible for hiring employees in accordance with our personnel manual. So he needs to follow all the rules for, you know, how we go through the selection process within the personnel manual. So again, just to match our current practice of how we hire. So those are the changes that we're proposing. And I don't know if there's any additional questions.
I have no.
Nope, looks good to me.
Jason? Good. All right.
Yeah. Are we doing the 2 15-minute breaks? And
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Right.
okay.
All right.
No exec session? Correct? Anybody?
Motion to adjourn going to.
Motion
exec
adjourn.
session. Motion to adjourn and go into exec session.
Second.
No, there is no exec session.
No
Right?
exec,
I was just clarifying, there isn't.
No.
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Yep. Second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. All right, good night.